At the age of 75, Joyce DeWitt comes clean about Three's business dealings. In reality, filming the hilarious American sitcom, The Three Roommates was a living nightmare. The male star made 5 times as much as the female star. Television executives deliberately undermined a blonde actress who demanded fair compensation. She worked alone on the picture. They betrayed each other's trust. She was even removed from the Hollywood scene. After years of deceit, greed, and broken trust, the show's downfall is finally being revealed. Fred Silverman was seeking for a daring way to liven things up when he became head of programming at a BC in early 1976. Afterwards, he stumbled upon a British comedy series titled Man About the House. Though uncomplicated, the concept was revolutionary for 1980 American television. A solitary guy and 2 unattached ladies live in close quarters. It had already been rejected by all 3 main networks because it posed too great a danger. However, the thought persisted in Silverman's mind. Even if he had appreciated the concept while at CBS, he could finally do something about it now. He then contacted producers Ted Bergman and Don Tafner to see if they might adapt the show from Britain for American audiences. Like his relatives before him, he was looking for anything new that would challenge conventional wisdom about race and politics. The proposal was approved, despite all the odds. Initially, a renowned Broadway playwright named Peter Stone was enlisted to adapt the show, but things nearly took a very different turn. He had the protagonist work as a chef at an exclusive French restaurant in New York. A high-end fashion model and a secretary shared his apartment. It was very over-the-top and glitzy. Silverman had an inkling it wouldn't fly after reading the script. It seemed like it wouldn't resonate with the average American. Prior to its production, Stone's version was cancelled. The difficulty of adapting a British concept for American audiences was highlighted by that initial setback. They desired something more grounded, something that seemed plausible in a location like Santa Monica. Larry Gelbart, the man behind M.A.E.S. H stepped in at that point, albeit reluctantly. Although he felt the idea was very simplistic and foolish, he agreed to give it a go for Silverman's sake. A new version was created by Gelbart in collaboration with his son-in-law, Gary Markowitz. The name Three's Company was really thought up by Markowitz. The man's name was David Bell in this alternate universe. A would be chef with filmmaking aspirations. Shared a home with Jenny, who worked at the DMV, and Samantha, who was an actress looking for a break. They were all housed in the same North Hollywood building, the Hacienda Palms. Though he was only on the show for a short time, Gelbart's version set the tone. It drew the concept nearer to something that seemed familiar while maintaining an element of risk. There was an issue with a BC the day before production on Three's Company was to start. Nobody could pull off playing Chrissy Snow like the other 2 pilots. There was little more time. Entertainer Fred Silverman, president of a BC, was in a state of desperation. As a result, he gathered a number of audition videos and started skimming through them. He didn't have high hopes. Suddenly, his attention was drawn to something. Suzanne Summers was the one. On The Tonight Show, he had caught a glimpse of her. He paused the recording, turned it backwards, and remained vigilant. Her omission from the selection was so shocking to him. No one could honestly explain to him why she had been turned down. Silverman promptly had her summoned. Her next stop was the set. Chrissy Snow had materialized in an instant. One of the most famous TV faces in the world would be Suzanne Summers. The program's 8 seasons and more than 170 episodes. Several outcomes were possible had Silverman not remained late that night. There were other things that came close to changing besides Suzanne's casting. John Ritter was cast in doubt by producers right before production began. His absurd physical humor caused them concern that he would convey an inappropriate message. Jack Tripper was to live with 2 ladies by pretending to be gay. It was feared by the producers that Ritter appeared too credible. Some of them were worried that if the audience thought Jack was gay, it would derail the plot. Concerns escalated to the point where Silverman had to intervene once more. "Thank goodness Ritter stayed," he remarked. Their worst fears realized as the show's driving force, his physically exaggerated comedic style. A star was born from Ritter's pratfalls and hilarious expressions. He went on to win a Golden Globe and an Emmy. What others perceived as a flaw in him turned out to be his strongest suit. Jack Tripper's part was up for grabs, even before Ritter was announced. A formidable opponent was Barry Van Dyke, who was Dick Van Dyke's son. The future director of Friends episodes, Michael Lembeck, was also. Additionally, Billy Crystal was present. The fact that he was cast in the wrong role didn't deter him. His breakout performance on Soap came the same year. Still, I can't think of anyone else besides Ritter playing Jack. How he possesses charisma, impeccable timing. The persona became unforgettable due to his physical humor. The cast was courageous, as well as fortunate. The character Janet, played by Joyce DeWitt, stood firm after only 6 episodes. It didn't seem well with her that she was given a sentence that made fun of a prostitute character. In Janet's view, that kind of judgmental attitude was not typical of her. She declined to say the phrase despite the producer's push. Even when John Ritter volunteered to take it on her behalf, DeWitt refused. "Carry a firearm." Still, she vowed not to say it. After that, she skipped work and went directly to the top when a BC attempted to back out of a promised raise, explaining to the head of the network that it wasn't about money, but about ethics. She became known as someone who would not back down in a crisis and was rewarded with a raise. Even the network demonstrated that level of dedication. Unfortunately, they were unable to cast Audra Lindley as Mrs. Roper since she had already been cast in a theater production in Los Angeles. Most people would have ignored it. Not a BC. Rather, they shelled out $8,000 to secure the entire theater for the evening, solely for her to record the pilot. It was a daring step, but it yielded results. 2 years later, Lindley and Norman Fell had their own spin-off, The Ropers, thanks to their great chemistry. Nobody thought Three's Company would be around when it debuted on March 15, 1977. As a test run in the spring, its original intended run was just 6 episodes. No one believed the network executives. Contrarily, viewers had different intentions. Many were interested in the unusual plot point, a man who pretended to be gay in order to cohabitate with 2 women. Laughs were flying off the tongues of the actors from the very first scene. Everyone was shocked that the first episode, titled A Man About the House, peaked at number 28 for the week. And that was only the start. More and more viewers tuned in as the series progressed. It had already been a smash hit by the time the 6th one premiered on April 21 St. The show soared to number 11 for the whole 1977 season, with an average rating of 23.1. It was unprecedented for a mid-season replacement to achieve such a level of success. ABC made no reservations. The show was immediately renewed since they knew they had a hit on their hands. In the fall, ABC moved the show to its current Tuesday night primetime slot. The move was astute, coming after Happy Days and Laverne and Shirley. Ratings skyrocketed as audiences continued to return. During the 1977-1978 season, it rose to the position of 3rd in the nation. A substantial portion of television households were engrossed in watching Three's Company. Not to mention that it continued. Its 30.3 rating the next year propelled it to number 2. Its success, from one season to the next, ensured its continued prominence. Despite the show's meteoric rise from its unlikely beginnings, not everyone found it funny. Some conservative groups were offended by the show's provocative humor. The National Federation for Decency went above and beyond, what the PTA had already done by giving it low marks. A campaign was launched to urge firms to remove their adverts from the broadcast. While some advertisers did pull out, ABC continued to air the show despite the backlash, which piqued viewers' interest even further. More people tend to show up when something causes a commotion. Here, that is precisely what transpired. In addition to making headlines and entertaining audiences, Three's firm also accomplished something quietly groundbreaking. It proved that nuclear families aren't the only possible ones. A unique family unit was formed by Jack, Janet, and Chrissy. Cindy and Terry joined them later. One that is based on mutual anarchy, friendship, and trust. In their Santa Monica apartment, pals helped each other out like siblings and created their own cozy, chaotic universe. Friends and Will and Grace were both inspired by the concept of friends becoming family. It revolutionized the way sitcoms depicted domestic life and relationships. Despite the sheer amount of pleasure, Klein did have disagreements with the producers on occasion. During a run-through, he once attempted to give a serious monologue about his character. They banished him from the program for 4 weeks the second he expressed interest in discussing his character. That is the level of control that was exerted during the laughter. As part of an article about sexuality on television, the entire cast made it onto the cover of Newsweek in 1978. Sadly, the once great occasion took a turn for the worse. Without realizing it would be used for marketing purposes, the cast was photographed striking an inappropriate pose for the magazine. It came as a shock to Joyce DeWitt and John Ritter. They were under the impression that the focus would be on comedy rather than sex. It was obvious that DeWitt was furious, and Ritter went on to say that it made the entire set feel uncomfortable. Suzanne Summers denied knowing the shoot would be so sexually explicit. Not only did the picture cause friction among the group, but it also affected the show's ratings. The emphasis changed all of a sudden. The public was being sold a sensual and scandalous version of what the performers thought was funny and light-hearted. Also on the verge of a bizarre turn was the theme music for the show. The original plan was for the 3 celebrities to sing it duet. Oh, that was a disaster. The musicians tried their best, but according to composer Joe Raposo, who penned Knock on Our Door, they simply couldn't sing. Ray Charles was invited. I don't mean the famous Ray Charles, I mean another Ray Charles who coached them on television. The producers wanted to know his opinion after an hour. He hesitated before saying, "I'm not sure," out of sensitivity. After telling him, "Well, we are," the producers simply laughed. "We appreciate your rendition." The theme was ultimately recorded by Ray Charles and Julia Rinker Miller as a result of it. They had a band of top-tier session musicians backing them up.